Today on the podcast, one of the boldest air raids of the early Pacific War. The commander of that raid remembers.
It had three real purposes. One purpose was to give the folks at home the first good news that we had had in World War II. It caused the Japanese to question their warlords. And from a tactical point of view, it caused the retention of aircraft in Japan for the defense of the home islands when we had no intentions of hitting them again seriously in the near future.
We're revisiting the incredible tale of the Doolittle Raid, a daring air raid that marked a turning point in the Pacific theater. I'm Robert Child, and this is Point of the Spear. Imagine a world where America lost the Pacific War. Would California, Oregon, and Washington fly the Japanese flag today? Starting next week, this unsettling possibility is explored in my riveting 15-part audio series, Ghost Carrier, They Died to Fight Another Day. Dive into an alternate history tale of a doomed aircraft carrier and its crew stranded in the vast Pacific in a supernatural twist of fate. As they confront the entire Japanese Navy alone, they're faced with a harrowing choice: surrender or fight for survival. Ghost Carrier is an epic narrative that transcends time, illustrating the essence of true courage. Join me next week for the first gripping installment of Ghost Carrier, They Died to Fight Another Day. In the early months of 1942, the morale of the American public and military was at an all-time low. The attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 had left the United States reeling, and the Japanese forces seemed unstoppable as they rapidly expanded their territory across the Pacific. In this grim atmosphere, a bold plan was hatched to strike back at the heart of Japan. James Doolittle recalls how it began.
A Navy captain named Lowe conceived the idea of taking Army medium bombers off of a Navy carrier and attacking Japan. The B-25 was selected because it was small, because it had the sufficient range to carry 2,000-pound bombs, 2,000 miles, and because it took off and handled very well. First, I found out what B-25 unit had the most experience, and then went to that organization and called for volunteers. And the entire group, including the group commander, volunteered.
Lieutenant Colonel Doolittle, a highly respected aviator and aeronautical engineer, led the air attack. The plan, later known as the Doolittle Raid, involved launching B-25 Mitchell bombers from an aircraft carrier, a feat that had never been attempted before. The mission was fraught with challenges. The B-25 bombers were not designed for aircraft carrier operations. Their size and weight made them difficult to launch and land on the narrow deck of a carrier. To make matters worse, the range of the B-25s meant that they would have to launch from the carrier much farther from Japan than initially planned, leaving little room for error.
If we were intercepted by Japanese surface or aircraft, our aircraft would immediately leave the decks. If they were within range of Tokyo, they would go ahead and bomb Tokyo, even though they would run out of gasoline shortly thereafter. That was the worst thing we could think of. And if we were not in range of Tokyo, we would go back to Midway. If we were not in range of either Tokyo or Midway, we would permit our airplanes to be pushed overboard so the decks could be cleared for the use of the carrier's own, Carrier Hornet's own aircraft.
Despite these daunting obstacles, on April 18, 1942, 16 B-25 bombers, each crewed by 5 brave men, took off from the USS Hornet. The aircraft carrier, along with its escorting fleet, was positioned about 650 miles east of Japan. The mission's goal was to strike military and industrial targets in Tokyo and other Japanese cities, delivering a psychological blow to the Japanese leadership and boosting American morale. The raid was a success, albeit with mixed results. The bombers managed to hit their targets, causing minimal physical damage, but significant psychological impact. The Japanese were stunned that American bombers had reached their homeland, and the raid forced them to reallocate resources to defend their territory, thereby weakening their offensive capabilities in the Pacific. However, the mission did not end with the bombing of Japan. The plan called for the bombers to continue westward and land in China. Unfortunately, the raiders faced numerous challenges: fuel shortages, bad weather, and the lack of navigational aids made the journey perilous.
When we got to China, 2 airplanes were so low on fuel that they landed in the surf alongside of the beach. 2 people were drowned. 8 of them got ashore. The weather was quite bad, and so we flew on till we got to where we thought we were as close as we could get to where we wanted to go, having been on dead reckoning for quite a while that we weren't precisely there, and then we all jumped.
Despite the hardships, the bravery and resilience of the Doolittle Raiders did not go unnoticed. The Chinese people, despite facing brutal reprisals from the Japanese forces, assisted the American airmen, helping many of them escape to safety. The Japanese retaliation against Chinese civilians was swift and brutal, resulting in the deaths of an estimated 250,000 Chinese. The aftermath of the Doolittle Raid had far-reaching consequences. While the physical damage to Japan was minimal, the psychological impact was profound. The raid exposed vulnerabilities in Japan's defenses and forced the Japanese military to reconsider their strategies. The raid also boosted American morale, proving that Japan was not invulnerable. For his leadership and bravery, James Doolittle was awarded the Medal of Honor. The surviving members of the Doolittle Raid were celebrated as heroes, their actions serving as a symbol of American resilience and determination. The raid also influenced future Allied strategies, demonstrating the importance of long-range bombing capabilities and the necessity of inter-service cooperation. Today, the story of the Doolittle Raid serves as a reminder of the courage and ingenuity of those who fought in World War II. It is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to rise above adversity, to take bold risks in the face of overwhelming odds, and to inspire others through acts of bravery. Thank you for joining me in revisiting one of the most daring air raids in World War II history. And be sure to be with us next week as we begin our 15-part series, Ghost Carrier, They Died to Fight Another Day, an alternative history story of an ill-fated ship in the Pacific War.
The voice began. 4 June 1942 was a black day for the United States Navy. We shall never forget the loss of our brave American sailors on the Yorktown, Enterprise, and Saratoga and their escort ships. President Wilkie offered comfort to a grieving nation with this message: "My fellow Americans, our resolve will never waver, will never extinguish. We will fight the enemy on the beaches at California, at Oregon, and Washington State. Americans will never surrender our soil to the evil empire of Japan, so help us God."
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review. And be sure to check out my YouTube channel with hundreds of hours of my military history work. I'm Robert Child, and this has been Point of the Spear.
Music licensed from audioblocks.com. Point of the Spear is produced by RSC Media Group.